"What the hell is this?" Victoria snapped, shaking the ruined documents. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Maria stood firm, her hands clasped tightly around the mop handle, but her voice remained calm. "It was an accident, ma'am. I'll clean it up." "Clean it up?" Victoria's voice was cold, sharp as a knife. She let out a bitter laugh. "You're incompetent, completely useless." Maria flinched slightly but said nothing. Her silence only fueled Victoria's rage. "You don't belong here. I've tolerated your presence long enough. You're fired," Victoria said. A heavy silence filled the office. Maria lifted her chin, refusing to look away. Her voice, steady despite the storm in front of her, carried a quiet strength. "You don't have to do this," Maria said. Victoria scoffed, arms crossing over her chest. "Oh, but I do. I should have done it a long time ago. You're just a cleaner, nothing more." Maria met her icy stare without fear. "One day, you'll regret stepping on people like dirt," she said, her tone unwavering. Victoria's smirk faltered for a brief second, but she quickly masked it with another scoff. "Get out," she spat, turning away as if Maria had already become invisible to her. If only she knew she was making the biggest mistake of her life, and by the end of this story, she would regret firing Maria, but by then, it would be too late. As we begin this story, where are you watching this story from, and what time are you watching it? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that all people should be treated with respect and regard, no matter the color of their skin, subscribe to this channel to show your support and help spread awareness. To better understand this story, we have to go back to the beginning, to where it all began. Maria Alonso was born and raised in San Joaquin, Iloilo, a quiet village in the Philippines where most families lived off fishing and farming. Life was hard, but Maria was never one to complain. She grew up in a small bamboo house with her parents and 3 younger siblings. Money was always tight, but her parents did their best to provide for them. Despite the struggles, Maria excelled in school. She loved learning, especially English, and dreamed of a better future. She wanted to give her family a life where they didn't have to worry about their next meal. She studied hard, hoping education would be her way out of poverty. After finishing college, Maria became an English teacher at the local elementary school. The pay was low, barely enough to cover her daily expenses, but she continued working because she loved teaching. However, as time passed, she realized that no matter how hard she worked, her salary would never be enough to lift her family out of poverty. She watched other villagers leave for bigger cities or even other countries in search of better opportunities. One day, she made a decision. She would go to America, the land of opportunities, the land of milk and honey, the land where dreams come true. She would go there and change her family's future. Maria knew that going to America was her only chance to change her family's future. She started saving every peso she could, cutting down on expenses and living as simply as possible. She avoided unnecessary spending, wore old clothes, and ate the cheapest meals. Every extra coin went into her savings. Despite her struggles, Maria never stopped helping her family. She sent money home every month, even when it meant having little left for herself. Her parents and siblings depended on her, and she carried that responsibility with pride. They were her reason for working so hard. After years of saving, Maria finally had enough money for a plane ticket and a small amount to start her new life. When the day came to leave, her family gathered at the airport, tears streaming down their faces. Her mother held her hands tightly, whispering prayers for her safety. "I will bring you all to America one day," Maria promised, holding back her own tears. With a deep breath, she walked toward the boarding gate. As the plane took off, she looked out the window, watching her homeland fade into the distance. She was scared but determined. Her new journey had begun. When Maria arrived in America, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. The streets were bigger, the buildings taller, and everything seemed fast-paced. She had dreamed of a better life here, but reality was much harder than she expected. Finding a good job was nearly impossible. Her teaching degree from the Philippines was not recognized, and no schools would hire her. With little choice, she took whatever work she could find, babysitting, washing dishes, and cleaning houses. The pay was low and the hours were long, but Maria never complained. She worked day and night, moving from one job to another, sometimes sleeping only a few hours. Even when her feet ached and exhaustion set in, she pushed forward. Her family depended on her. Every month she sent money back home, making sure her parents and siblings had enough to eat and could continue their education. Despite the struggles, Maria never lost hope. She reminded herself why she was here, to build a better future. She believed in hard work and sacrifice. No matter how tough things got, she kept going. One day, she knew her efforts would pay off. After months of searching, Maria found a job as a cleaner at Armandi Vineyards, a once prestigious wine company that was now struggling financially. It wasn't her dream job, but it was steady work, and she was grateful for the opportunity. Maria worked long hours, often arriving before sunrise and leaving late at night. She cleaned the offices, scrubbed the floors, and made sure everything was spotless. Even when no one noticed her efforts, she took pride in her work. The company's employees walked past her without a second glance. Some ignored her completely, while others looked down on her because of her job. But Maria didn't let it bother her. She remained humble, diligent, and kind to everyone, treating them with respect even when they didn't do the same for her. Despite the struggles, she was thankful to have a job. She knew that every small step forward mattered. The company where she worked had a CEO. Victoria Lancaster was the cold and ruthless CEO of Armandi Vineyards. She was known for her sharp tongue, quick temper, and complete lack of empathy. Employees feared her, dreading the sound of her high heels clicking against the floor. She treated her staff as if they were expendable, constantly overworking and underpaying them. If someone made a mistake, she humiliated them in front of everyone, showing no mercy. As the company struggled, Victoria's anger grew worse. Instead of fixing the real problems, she blamed her employees, pushing them harder and making their lives miserable. People left the company one by one, unable to take the pressure. Maria became her favorite target. Victoria often mocked her Filipino accent and looked down on her for being a cleaner. She made snide remarks, calling her just the help and reminding her that she was at the bottom of the company. Despite the insults, Maria never talked back. She kept her head down and did her job with patience and dignity. She refused to let Victoria break her spirit. No matter how badly she was treated, Maria remained kind and hardworking, believing that true strength was in endurance, not cruelty. Armandi Vineyards, once a respected name in the wine industry, was now falling apart. Sales were dropping, customers were turning to competitors, and the company's bad investments were piling up. Suppliers started demanding payments, and investors were losing faith. Instead of finding solutions, Victoria Lancaster blamed everyone but herself. Her frustration grew by the day. She became more aggressive, lashing out at her employees for the smallest mistakes. Meetings turned into shouting matches, and the office became a place of fear and tension. The harder she pushed, the more employees started quitting. Departments became understaffed, and the workload doubled for those who stayed. Maria, despite being a cleaner, was not spared from Victoria's wrath. Whenever Victoria was in a bad mood, she targeted Maria, insulting her work and calling her useless. She mocked her in front of others, making sure Maria felt small. But Maria never reacted with anger. She continued her work with grace and patience, refusing to let Victoria's cruelty change her. Meanwhile, the company's situation worsened. With employees leaving and morale at an all-time low, Armandi Vineyards was on the verge of collapse. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Do so right away, so you do not miss the next story when it drops. One afternoon at Armandi Vineyards, Maria moved quickly, mopping the floors in Victoria Lancaster's office, making sure every corner was spotless. She had done this routine 100 times before, but today, something went wrong. As she turned to wring out her mop, the bucket tipped over, sending dirty water splashing onto Victoria's desk. Her papers were instantly soaked, including a contract she had left open. Maria gasped and grabbed a rag, trying to clean the mess before anyone saw. But it was too late. The door burst open, and Victoria stormed in. Her face turned red as she took one look at the papers. "You idiot!" she screamed. "Do you even know what you just did? That contract was worth millions." Maria opened her mouth to apologize, but Victoria cut her off. "You are incompetent and useless. I should have fired you a long time ago." Victoria's voice echoed through the office. By now, employees had gathered outside the door, watching in silence. "You're fired," Victoria snapped. "Get out of this company, now." Maria stood there for a moment. Then, with her head held high, she removed her gloves, placed them on the cart, and walked away. She did not beg. The office was silent. Everyone stood frozen, watching Maria as she processed Victoria's words. She had just been fired, humiliated in front of her coworkers, but she refused to show weakness. She took a deep breath and turned back to look Victoria straight in the eye. Her voice was calm, but her words were firm. "One day you will regret treating people like dirt, because the ones you step on today might be the ones above you tomorrow." Victoria scoffed, crossing her arms. "Get out!" she snapped. Maria didn't say another word. She did not cry, she did not beg. Instead, she walked with dignity, her back straight, her head held high. The employees who had gathered outside watched in shock. No one had ever spoken to Victoria like that before. Some exchanged nervous glances, while others looked away, afraid to show sympathy. As Maria stepped out of the office for the last time, she felt no shame. She had given her best, treated others with kindness, and kept her pride intact. She had lost a job, but she had not lost herself. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Do so right away, so you do not miss the next story when it drops. Maria's absence was immediately felt at Armandi Vineyards. The office, once spotless, became messy and unorganized. Trash piled up in the corners, the floors lost their shine, and the bathrooms started to stink. Employees noticed, but no one said anything. At first, Victoria didn't care. To her, Maria was just a cleaner, easily replaceable. But as the days passed, things got worse. The employees, already overworked and stressed, felt the loss of Maria's quiet kindness and steady presence. Morale plummeted. The office felt colder, heavier. The remaining workers grew more frustrated under Victoria's harsh leadership. One by one, more employees resigned, tired of being treated like nothing. The company's financial troubles deepened. Investors pulled out. Victoria tried to fix things, but nothing worked. She pushed harder, yelled more, but all it did was drive more people away. Victoria's confidence turned to desperation. The company she had built was falling apart before her eyes. And for the first time, she started to wonder, had she made a mistake? While the company struggled, Maria refused to let the setback at Armandi Vineyards break her spirit. Losing her job didn't stop her. It only fueled her desire to succeed. She found new cleaning jobs, working harder than ever before. She didn't waste a penny. Every dollar she earned was carefully saved and invested in small ventures. She spent her free time learning about business, reading books and articles. Maria understood that success wasn't just about hard work. It was about making smart choices and investing wisely. She wanted to build something for herself, something that would bring her closer to the dream she had always had, a better life for her family. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Do so right away, so you do not miss the next story when it drops. One day, while working a cleaning job in a small office, Maria met Carlos, a Filipino-American entrepreneur. He noticed her work ethic and began talking to her about business. Carlos saw potential in Maria and offered to help her learn about investments, business strategies, and financial planning. With Carlos's guidance, Maria started making smarter choices with her money. She invested in small businesses and eventually started her own venture. Slowly but surely, she built a solid foundation for her future. Maria's determination and hard work were finally paying off. Maria continued to work hard and save money, but now she had a plan. With the knowledge she gained from Carlos and her own experiences, she looked for the right investment opportunities. She noticed that the wine industry had strong potential, despite some struggling businesses. Using her savings, Maria began investing in small wine businesses. She didn't rush. She took her time, learning how the industry worked. She studied production, distribution, and marketing, understanding what made a wine company successful. As she expanded her network, more people in the industry took notice of her. At first, they were surprised. A former cleaning lady investing in wineries? But as they got to know Maria, they respected her determination, honesty, and work ethic. Maria never cut corners or mistreated people. She built strong relationships based on trust and fairness. Her businesses started growing, and soon, she was no longer just an investor. She was a leader in the industry. Maria's journey was far from over, but she was no longer just surviving. She was building something greater. And without realizing it, she was getting closer and closer to Armandi Vineyards once again. Armandi Vineyards kept falling apart. Victoria's reckless decisions had pushed the company deeper into debt. She had ignored warnings, made risky investments, and refused to listen to her employees. Now, the damage was too great to fix. The company's sales continued to drop, and customers lost trust in the brand. The best employees had already left, and those who remained were overworked and frustrated. Suppliers refused to extend credit, demanding payments that the company could no longer afford. Victoria tried everything to save the business, but nothing worked. She cut costs, fired more employees, and even tried rebranding, but it was too late. Investors saw the company as a lost cause and started pulling out. One day, Victoria received the final blow. The bank was ready to seize the company's assets. She had no way out. Armandi Vineyards, the company she had once ruled with an iron fist, was now on the brink of bankruptcy. For the first time in her life, Victoria felt powerless. The empire she had built was about to crumble beneath her, and she had no idea that the person who would save the company was the one she had once humiliated and thrown away. Victoria had run out of options, and the company was about to be sold off to the highest bidder. She expected a large corporation or a wealthy investor to take over, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. Maria had watched the company struggle from a distance, knowing its true potential. When the price dropped to a fraction of its original value, she made her move. Using her savings and business connections, she acquired the company that had once treated her as invisible. When the news spread, the employees were stunned. The woman who had once mopped the floors now owned the entire company. They whispered in shock, some remembering how Maria had been mocked and humiliated by Victoria. The day Maria was to formally introduce herself to the company's staff, Victoria sat frozen in her office, unable to process the reality. Maria, her former cleaning lady, was now her boss. Maria didn't arrive with arrogance or revenge. She walked through the halls with quiet confidence, greeting employees with respect. She was not here to destroy, she was here to rebuild. Victoria sat in her office, staring at the walls, her mind racing. Maria owned Armandi Vineyards now. The thought made her stomach twist. She had ruled this company for years, treating employees as if they were beneath her. And Maria, she had been nothing more than a cleaning lady, someone Victoria had insulted, humiliated, and thrown away without a second thought. Now Maria held all the power. Victoria knew what happened next. She would be fired. She had no doubt about it. If the roles were reversed, she wouldn't hesitate to throw Maria out. Her hands shook as she prepared for the inevitable. Should she beg for her job? Could she convince Maria to keep her? She had never begged before, but she had nowhere else to go. If she lost this position, she would lose everything. A knock on the door made her heart skip a beat. Maria had arrived. Victoria took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. This was it, the moment she had feared the most. Victoria braced herself as Maria walked into the office. She expected cold revenge, expected Maria to smirk and throw her out, just like she had done to her. But Maria's face was calm. There was no anger, no hatred, only quiet strength. Victoria straightened in her chair, clearing her throat. I know you're going to fire me, she said, forcing herself to look Maria in the eyes. But before you do, I just want to say—" Maria raised a hand, stopping her. "I'm not going to fire you." Victoria's eyes widened. "What?" Maria took a seat across from her, her voice steady, her gaze firm. "You can stay, Victoria, but things will be different now. This company will be built on respect, fairness, and leadership through kindness." Victoria was speechless. She had expected Maria to take everything from her. Instead, Maria was offering her a second chance. "I want to show you that you can lead with kindness, compassion, and regard for people beneath you, and still be successful," Maria continued. "You don't have to put others down to climb up, so you can keep your job." She stood up, looking Victoria in the eye. "I am not like you. I am better than you. Not because of how much I have, but because I have a good heart." Victoria swallowed hard, unable to argue. For the first time, she felt truly small, not because of power, but because she knew Maria was right. Under Maria's leadership, everything changed at Armandi Vineyards. The first thing she did was increase employee salaries. Workers who had been underpaid for years finally received what they deserved. Maria also improved working conditions, making sure employees felt valued and respected. She personally reached out to former employees who had left due to Victoria's harsh treatment. Many of them were hesitant at first, but when they heard Maria was in charge, they returned with renewed hope. The office atmosphere became lighter, more positive. Employees no longer walked on eggshells. They worked harder, not out of fear, but out of loyalty and respect for their new boss. With a strong, happy workforce, Armandi Vineyards began to recover. Sales improved, customers returned, and the company regained its reputation. Investors who had once pulled out saw the transformation and came back. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Do so right away, so you do not miss the next story when it drops. For the first time in years, Armandi Vineyards was thriving. Maria had turned the company around, not with fear and cruelty, but with kindness and fairness. She proved that true leadership was about lifting others up, not tearing them down. Working under Maria was a humbling experience for Victoria. For years, she had ruled the company with fear and intimidation. Employees had obeyed her, not because they respected her, but because they were afraid of losing their jobs. But now, things were different. Victoria watched as the employees greeted Maria with smiles. They worked harder, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Maria listened to them, valued their opinions, and treated them with kindness. At first, Victoria felt bitter. She couldn't understand how Maria, a former cleaning lady, had succeeded where she had failed. But as time passed, she started to see the truth. Maria was a better leader because she cared. Victoria softened. She spoke to employees with more patience. She started listening instead of barking orders. Slowly, she realized that power didn't come from making people feel small. It came from lifting them up. One day, she stood in the office and looked around. The company she had nearly destroyed was now thriving, not because of her, but because of Maria. And for the first time, Victoria felt something she had never felt before. Respect for Maria and for the leader she had become. Maria had worked her entire life for this moment. With her success, she finally brought her family to America. The day they arrived at the airport, she stood waiting, her heart pounding with excitement. When she saw her parents and siblings stepping off the plane, tears filled her eyes. Her mother hugged her tightly, crying into her shoulder. "You did it, Maria," she whispered. Her father, always a quiet man, patted her back with pride. Her younger siblings, now grown, looked around in amazement at their new home. For years, Maria had dreamed of giving them a better life. Now, they were finally together, free from the struggles they had faced in the Philippines. She bought them a house, made sure they had everything they needed, and watched as they settled into their new lives, full of opportunity. But Maria didn't stop there. Remembering her own hardships, she opened scholarships for Filipinos, helping students who wanted to study abroad but lacked the resources. She wanted to give others the chance she had once fought for. Her journey had been long and difficult. but she had made it, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in her. The conference room at Armandi Vineyards was filled with employees, both old and new. The company had come a long way, and today they gathered to celebrate its remarkable transformation. Maria stood at the front, looking at the faces before her. These were the same people who had once worked under fear and exhaustion. Now they stood with pride and confidence, knowing they were valued. She took a deep breath and spoke. Strength isn't about stepping on others. It's about lifting them up. That is what true success is. The room was silent for a moment. Then, the sound of applause filled the air. Employees clapped, some with tears in their eyes. They knew Maria's words were true, not just because she said them, but because she lived by them. Victoria sat among the crowd, listening. For the first time, she understood what real leadership meant. It wasn't about power or fear. It was about respect, kindness, and integrity. As the applause grew louder, Maria smiled. She had fought hard to get here, and now she was exactly where she was meant to be. One evening, long after the office had emptied, Victoria knocked on Maria's door. Maria looked up, surprised. Victoria stood there, hands clasped, looking hesitant. For the first time, there was no arrogance in her eyes, only humility. Victoria took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, "for everything. The way I treated you, the way I treated everyone. I was wrong, and I see that now." Maria studied her for a moment, then smiled. "I never needed an apology," she said softly. "I just needed you to understand." Employees stayed not out of fear, but because they loved their jobs. The business expanded, gaining international recognition. Investors trusted Maria's vision, and her leadership inspired many. Maria had come from humble beginnings, but she had built something far greater than a company. She had created a legacy. And she had done it not with power, but with kindness. If this video made you reflect, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's spark the conversations that lead to change. And if you believe in calling out injustice and amplifying stories that matter, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Together, we can shine a light on the truth and work toward a better world. Let's keep the conversation going.